So welcome, Dawitro. Today I will talk a little bit about my own website, a little bit complicated now than it was in the beginning. I will talk a little bit about the road and what I have currently. So who can remember how their website was looking like, how the web was looking like 10 years ago? How their website was probably hosted? Probably some free hosting out there. So web is not even the same anymore like it was in the 90s. Like in the 90s, it was controlled by the US, even though most of the stuff was founded and created in Switzerland. But in 2002, you see already there's a whole difference. There's like a more move in Asia and in Europe. So already 30 years ago, there was like a whole spread of the internet already there. And this day is even more, like 43% of the web is connected, and almost 50% is in Asia. Not even in the US anymore, not in Europe, but in Asia, and again, a new continent. So basically, shared hosting is not enough anymore. It's not to blame on the shared hosting. It's just on all the criteria out there. Like shared hosting in generally is one server on one particular place, so say in Amsterdam, Frankfurt, whatever, which means that people from Asia or the US will have a slow site if they will see it. It doesn't mean if you're really good, lucky and you find a host like, say, at Amsterdam at the hotspot there, then US will not really see a difference. So my site history is a little bit like I started in 2008 running my own personal website. Before I had like free hosting with like weird domains, not Marko.nl at that point. And I started with a really crappy shared hosting. I say crappy because at one point my site was down for a full month because the guy was on a holiday. If they try it now, most likely people will go to their office or their place to have a good word. But at that point, that was how the state was. So I switched to another shared hosting. It was fine, but obviously, from my point of view, they were not updating their software fast enough. They were still using a pretty old version of the control panel. So I started switching to a VPS with DirectMN in 2010. So it was on my control, and I can do the things that I wanted. I still run it now, but in 2012, I added another server for only the web. So I could install Nginx there without interfering with DirectAdmin, what is only supporting Apache. But I can just do whatever I want on that space if I want to do it for my own website. If I want to add one really fast, then I could easily add it on DirectAdmin like what I do now because my sister needs one. I can easily drop it there because her needs are different than mine. And this year I start switching to DigitalOcean to set up like multiple servers that work together. It does not mean that I did not make mistakes during the years. Like when I was running my first VPS and I think it was updating for Ubuntu 8 to 9, I just updated it twice. The first time I was like, it broke and I asked the host to restore it. The second time I updated again, like a few months later because I thought, well, maybe now it works. And afterwards I was like checking it up and I found a blog post of the same host saying, yeah, our kernel is not compatible with the latest version of Ubuntu. So I asked them again to restore it, and I waited till they gave me a message like, well, yeah, you can update now. After that, I also played around with, like, I want to speed up my website. So I changed some Apache settings. For a whole year, my site was probably twice slower as it was. Again, running your own VPS is not as easy as it is. Like, a lot of people will tell on stage saying, like, oh yeah, my site is now suddenly with Nginx like 10 times faster than if I run it with Apache and with all like shared hosting configurations. But it's like cheating if you compare it with all the problems people had during the years and all the frustration they probably had by learning it. But by learning it, I got jobs that if I had to talk with the IT guys, I could convince them that they do something wrong, and if they would say something, well, you're wrong, I know what they mean. So I can talk with them on a day-by-day basis without being confused with what they say. Also with DirectAdmin, it's a bit weird because updating PHP goes by their control. Updating Apache goes by their control. So they have like an awesome script what does it, which really helps, but it also means it can be confusing with all the steps you normally don't have to do. Like normally you can go like, say, update my PHP version and you get the latest from the repo, so from, in my case, Debian. And I always like running like the testing version of Debian, that I can get the latest versions, which sometimes creates dependency issues. What I had one time that my object cache was not even loading anymore because I was updating it, and somehow during the lines that I did not saw was that my object cache did not work anymore. So this year I started building my own cluster, and basically how it basically looks like is like, well, you have a load balancer, you have 2 web servers, and some stuff behind. In my case, MariaDB, the database, what is normally MySQL, Memcache and Elasticsearch are on the same cluster, on the same server, because I don't need more. Normally you would split that down. So if something breaks, or one server breaks, then only that one thing breaks. So if my database breaks, but I still have my object cache from Memcache, things could probably still work if it's already there. So on every server, I have several components already there. So update host is basically a service that tells the server I have on my own local machine to say which server are up to date and which components need to be updated. And from my own laptop, I can update all the servers out there. So if I want to maintain it, I can easily see it. If there's something not up to date, I can easily see it. I can make groups. So one, like the web server is one group in my system. So I can see Nginx needs to be updated on the web service. And at that point, all the machines get updated, not by hand going to every single one, updating. And in the end, what you could probably create is some inconsistencies. That means that one server has PHP 5.6, but the other one runs 7, and it becomes really complicated. I use aptcron, what is basically saying, emailing my email address, which packages need to be updated. This way, I get notifications when something needs to be updated, and it really helps in getting things done. For in the future, I want to do logging through Fluent, what means all the log files from Apache, from Nginx in this case done, but also from the load balancer, from the web server, from the database, all kinds of log files are clustered in one big database. And from there, you can really do really cool analysis. So if you have multiple servers that provide your website, one breakage can happen on one server, but the other breakage on another one, and you have no clue how much that happened and why it happened. So you need to combine everything together to get a better picture of what happens. And I use a firewall called UFW, what is a kind of skin for IP tables that helps blocking ports by default. So in generally, I block everything and only allow the things that I want my site to see. So all my web servers can't even see the public world, because why should they? So again, by default, everything is denied by incoming and outgoing traffic, but I do allow HTTP connection, obviously DNS to find the websites when, for example, WordPress wants to check some information that it can do that. I allow everything from my IP at home. So even when I'm here, I can still connect to all the machines separately and update them or see what went wrong or make little changes. And I will add other specific rules. So for the database, you need to open port 3306, and those cases happen every once in a while that you need to a little bit adjust the rules. For the load balance, I use Nginx, but then the mainline. That means the development release, which in generally always stable. I never had experienced problems. I even run it by compiling the source myself to get some support extra, and never really had issues with it. I also have like a cacher for the apt-get, so all the packages always get loaded from the load balancer. So if I want to update Nginx on 6 machines, only one time it will be getting loaded through the load balancer, and the rest is being cached, so it's really fast to update, and it will save data traffic. And I use mod security to provide extra additional rules to block certain IPs, certain logic for, like, if it's a WordPress site, that probably you want to block WP login for 60 seconds if one IP logged incorrectly for 3 times. You can do a lot of those rules really awesome in mod security. So if there is even a security issue in a plugin and you have like 100 sites, but you don't know if an update will break one, you can easily make a rule yourself easily in a way that if you add it there is one place to fix them all. Creating the rules can be complicated because you need to know what the security issue is. Last year when I worked at a hosting company, we had issues with Jetpack, and together with the automatic people, we found we retrieve rules from them, and we could adjust them to our needs. For the web server, again, Nginx. Currently, I run PHP 7 for a few months without any fallback to PHP 5. I don't use HTTPM because it adds different logic that I don't want. And PHP 7 is almost as fast, if not faster, than HTTPM. I run opcast through PHP, what means if a PHP file gets loaded, it's generated to like binary code, and that binary code is stored in memory. So the first time the website is a little bit slower, but the second time you request it is really fast. I run WP-CLI, obviously on those servers that I can make some calls like updating the URL in the database. But I also have additional modules to do security checks on the servers that I can easily run on my own local machine to see if something changed. Syncing of the upload directory between multiple servers, I did it with NFS. What is maybe, it's the simplest way, but not particularly the best way. But for now, I have only 2 servers. It's really fast. I don't have a lot of data. And if images are loaded, they are stored on a CDN anyway. So even if this is not the fastest options, CDN will cache it, and it's then already no problem for me anymore. So for opcache, I did tune some stuff. So I turned off that it will check if there are updates in scripts. What means if I change a PHP file, I need to restart PHP in general. But that does give more performance. Like if I commit something, then I can have some hooks in place, some logic in place that, for example, for WP Serbia, every time someone commits to the master branch of Git, directly there will be made a call to the load balancer, and the load balancer will make calls to every server separately to say update. And by updating it, it also then restarts PHP, and everything is fine. So there will never be a case that PHP will be out of sync with those files unless someone tried to hack me and change files. In the end, I'm still safe because those files will not be loaded to the user. I increased some settings like how many files should be in a cache, how many memory should be consumed. I enabled fast shutdown, what should make things faster, but it can also, there are cases that things break. In my case, I had no problem, so if you enable it, please test it. And I enable file override, that it also, when you use file exist and those kind of functions in PHP, that it still use the cache from opcache and not directly make a file check to see if the file is really there or not. Again, depending on what you're doing, there are cases that you should not enable it. So on the service server, I have the database, MariaDB, Memcache, which I will move away to Redis, because Redis, if I restart Memcache, all the cache will be gone. With Redis, it still will be there, but the problem is, personally, I could not get the module in PHP 7 ready. So I did put it on GitHub, and someone else made it, they fixed it, but I'm still waiting till the main developer commits it to his code that I can run it, and I'm pretty sure it's stable and that all the unit tests are written. And I'm busy with using Elasticsearch to make search faster and better. It's like Elasticsearch is like a database, but it stores it in a different way, and you can do a lot of cool API calls. So if you want to filter things out, like say you have a lot of hotels, but you only want to find 5-star hotel, Elasticsearch will already give the number of results back. Even if you only show 10, it will say, oh, there are 52 available of that. But it then says, oh, from like hotels in Zagreb, there are 5 left if you filter it out, and hotels in Rijeka only 2. So you can really do a lot of cool filtering options, and that's how I start using Elasticsearch for a client. So currently, if you look again to the same picture, you see I added some software layers. Again, Cron only runs on Web 1 because it doesn't make sense to run it on the same machine multiple times. And now you already get a really good picture of what I have currently. But then again, I add some additional stuff on top of this. So I built some microservices that help me things out. So microservices is a really small something that is really specific in their task to do things. It's really focused and doing that one thing really well. Which means instead of putting everything in WordPress, you split some logic out of it to make it easier. Like, for example, my website, I have a network installation. I disable the cron job of WordPress. But I create like a really small PHP script running on that machine on a cron job, calling every URL, every cron job every minute. Now, the cron job in WordPress works better because if you say, I want to release a post at 9 a.m. in the morning, and no one is at your website, that post will not be released. It will not be announced on Twitter if you have that in place. So a lot of things simply don't work. And if the next person comes to your website at 3 p.m., maybe that blog post that was about an event that day will not be posted. So the benefits are it offloads a lot of functionality from WordPress. You can program in different languages and all the services separately. So it's really easy. Like if you say, I want to write this in Java because it's better, you can do that. If you think Node.js works better for a different logic, in my case, I wrote a way to get all the checksums of plugins and themes. I did it in Node.js. It was really fast, and it makes more sense to put it in Node than PHP because PHP is just too slow. And it creates a high level of separation because everything is placed somewhere else. If I break that one service, my whole website is still running. Maybe not as good as it should, but in generally, most of my visitors will not even see it. And it's ease of deployment. Instead of like one fix you do somewhere else, you don't have to scan around, say, 10,000, 100 times of lines of code. And generally, my microservice is only 200 lines of code. It has a lot of dependencies, but I only know that I assume, maybe not always that good, that people unit test the code and that they know that it works. So personally, I only have to check 200 lines of code if it works. And I only need to write unit tests for those 200 lines of code. And if you want to scale it, say, I generate the plugins, the checksums of plugins and themes on one machine, but suddenly this whole room, but not only this whole room, but 10% of the WordPress users start doing that. Probably that one machine can't handle it anymore. So instead of increasing the capacity of my service, of like my websites and all the stuff around, I only need to do one machine for a limited amount of time, and that one machine will be probably down for a few seconds to make that scale. And in generally, all those microservices have like APIs. So if I build something, but something broke, say you update, like WordPress has on .org, every time you commit something, a new zip file will be generated. On one time it does not generate it, the person who from the .org meta team can easily go to the internal system, fill in the URL, press enter, and then that logic starts again. They don't need to do like to a certain machine. They know that from a private network they can make that call, which means it is also a lot of reusable. You can reuse a lot of this code on a lot of places because it has this API there. And from there, a lot of other microservices can call each other to make things happen. So again, what I currently have is the cron job that calls every site in my network. And I have several Node.js servers running on my WP Central website, what in this case currently only does the checksums for plugins and themes. But soon I will get the downloads of WordPress every minute. I will get more information like from contributors, which plugins they have, which themes, etc. And I have an additional server for image manipulation. So I use Tumblr, what is a Python server that can do image manipulation. It's done by passing an image to Tumblr, and Tumblr will generate the image based on your specification. So you can do cropping, resizing, adding filters. It's a lot like Photon from Jetpack. But again, now it's on your own local machine. So instead of you need to use Jetpack because of the license, you can do whatever you want, and you can add a lot of cool stuff on it. It has a lot of image optimizers, and you can create your own ones. It has several kinds of image storage. So if you don't have a CDN, you can store images based on request in memory. And I use a second CDN for the WebP support. So WebP in general is like 70% smaller. So suddenly my website loads way faster. And when I added it, Jetpack didn't even have it. Now they do, but at that point not. So I also had like a benefit by using Tumblr instead of Photon from Jetpack. The installation is a bit more complicated because all the dependencies are off. So you need to install quite a lot of stuff first to make it work. So I wrote the things down here. So if you want to play like on your local machine, like with VirtualBox, you can afterwards check my presentation out and see if you play with it, what happens. So currently my setup is like this. So still the load balancer is in front, but now Tumbar too. And Tumbar makes a request directly to the load balancer, just to URL. So when I want to make a change, I don't like Tumbar doesn't have to know how the infrastructure in the gray area looks like. It just do whatever it wants. And the microservice is behind and like a firewall and has no idea about the world outside the local network. So the last thing is a bit about security. So again, I have a firewall. I added rules to opening ports. My SSA is key only. So people can try to find my password, but they can't access it because they need to have the SSA key. And I don't allow PHP execution in my uploads folder. The reason why I did that was that I almost got hacked when using a form plugin, Gravity Forms, and they did find a way to upload it, but they could not execute it because I had a network installation, and they did not know the full path. If the guy was clever, he could, but because of that, I added this one too, because it makes more sense, because PHP files don't belong there. And the first level app security is super admins need to use an IP. So since I'm the only super admin, it's my house IP, and only that one can connect. And since I have a VPN connection to my house, then there's no problem. And soon, when WordPress adds two-factor authentication, admins should have that enabled. The second level security is a lot about log files. See what happened and what can you do. I logged the failed login attempts. I still don't do anything about it, but I have already logs there. So if I want to do something with all the websites I have, I can collect all the log files and do something with it. I also added a detection layer, so it detects if files got changed. That's why I built a microservice that it also detects plugin and theme files, and not only WordPress. It will check if there are PHP files in the upload directory, even if they can't be called. If they are there, then probably there is some security issue. I detect if there are updates needed by core, by the plugins, by themes, and also by the server. I build like a little panel inside of WordPress. So I have now two ways to check if there are updates on the server level, but it's still better than zero. And I also know which plugins and themes are not used. If you want to learn a bit more about this, I had a presentation this year at WordCamp Cologne called Protecting Your Site by Detection. I describe a little bit more in detail what I built, how it looked like, and you should check it out. So by the end of this presentation, you don't need to understand this stuff, but at least play with it, break stuff, but still learn from that. In the end, it will benefit you. Like, as I'm a backend developer, I never had to understand basically nothing about server technology. But the last couple of projects, if the team has zero knowledge, you're screwed. Like, I was then the person who knew what had to do. And in some cases, I also needed to do server configuration or tell them how to build a server. If you know something about it, it makes a difference from you from the rest in the market. Again, my name is Marko Heijnen. I'm the founder of Code Kitchen. I'm the lead developer of GlotPress, what supports translate.wordpress.org. I'm already now helped out 10 versions plus of WordPress, and I'm one of the organizers of WordCamp Belgrade. Well, if you want to contact me with questions when you play with it, you can contact me by email, on Twitter, or use the contact form on my website at markoheijnen.com. Thank you for listening. Hvala puno. And any questions if there's still time? No time.